Hello again, and welcome back to All Saints Church here in Bakewell for another conversation with John Butler on a creaky chair by the sounds of it. John, one of my destinations was Oxford for a friend's meeting house workshop on the Meister Eckhart, the German medieval mystic. And I found a lot that puzzled me. I was both inspired and puzzled, and I thought we'd kick off this conversation to see if you could help my puzzlement. One of the things that Meister Eckhart is reported to have said, before I have to say he was excommunicated after he died, is whoever speaks of God as nothing speaks of God properly. I could have a go at that, but honestly, I'm not equipped to comment on the nothingness of God. So I thought I'd pass that ball to you.
I suppose much depends on the intonation of the voice. No thing. Things can usually be described, can't they? How do you describe God? The world consists of, well, mostly things, doesn't it? Obvious. And yet in the midst of things, sitting here, just quietly still, feet on the ground, aware of surroundings, all the things that are surrounding us, there is this invisible stillness. That cannot be described. There's a nice wind outside. I like to sit here when the wind's blowing because you feel the church. It sort of blows in the roof somewhere and makes a nice sort of bit like a ship at sea. You feel the elements around you. And yet that even the wind is contained within this stillness. The wind is something, isn't it? A very subtle thing maybe compared to the floor and the furniture here, but it's still a thing. And yet this presence, this spiritual presence, so deeply obvious to those that have connected with it, it's not really a thing, is it? In fact, that is all its nature, that things come and go, things have limits. Things are here today and gone tomorrow. Even the stones wear out. Whereas this no thing is eternal and forever. When all else passes away. Yes, we do make an error when we refer to God as something, because we bring it then captive within our own conceptions. And that's always the beginning of confusion. Good for Meister Eckhart.
So, John, this no thing, nothing, cannot be described. Does it have any substance? Not substance. What is the presence of presence that in which we swim?
Yes, we're insatiable, aren't we, in our craving to put everything in a little box and give it a label. We do our best, don't we, to limit the limitless. Funny, isn't it? We find it much easier to do that than let go our limits and unite with the limitless, don't we? We want to bring it down to our level. Well, of course, that's the story of Jesus. Jesus gives us a human model. He refers to God as the Father. It is rather like a... Because those of us that are blessed to be able to rest, even occasionally, and even better, abide for considerable periods of time in this presence, it's infinitely comforting, trustworthy, benevolent. When you think that sitting here, all human foolishness is contained within it, without a word of criticism or judgment. It's infinitely gentle, isn't it? Entirely tolerant of our waywardness. Just here, like invisible arms enfolding us. And if and when we ever stop trying to figure out what love is, usually in rather lowly human terms, we may find that that's actually what we're talking about. Who can describe love? We all have a go, don't we? We think we know.
They say the Eskimo language has 100 words for snow, or however many, but in the English language we only have one for love, John.
Yes, I know. Love, freedom, peace. Love, freedom, peace. There are one or two others, aren't there? Anyway, I can't think of them at the moment. None of them can be described, can they? And that is really, as you draw nearer to this indefinable nothing that we refer to as God, it becomes ever less possible to describe. That's why love, peace and freedom, bliss, which are, you could say, almost the well, you could call them the highest of the heavenly hierarchy, or the most subtle of our human experiences. They melt into the great undescribable, don't they? They're all stepping stones to the ultimate.
So whilst this nothingness of God defies adjectives, do I sense there were some attributes bubbling up there, John, as Jesus referring to God as his heavenly Father, all compassionate, all merciful, these are attributes, if not adjectives.
Yes, I'm not sure what the difference is, attributes or adjectives. Well, I can't improve on those, can I? Can only repeat what other men have repeated. Just sitting here, as I always do, waiting for questions to be thrown at me. What gives me confidence? It's in being able to hold on with an invisible hand to this presence, like holding my Father's hand invisibly. This spiritual presence, and whatever I have of strength or confidence, or even ability to answer questions, comes from that. And the more obvious it becomes, the easier it is to forget about that rather long ago entity known as John Butler, which simply fades out of the picture. It just melts before the greater reality that we're endeavouring to talk about. Indeed, the most meaningful answer I could give you is just to look at the camera from that point of infinite rest. Utter peace, completeness. There's nothing lacking at all. In which the wind and this performance of you and me having this conversation, the camera, the church around us, are really like the stage props, you could almost say, in this performance of what we call creation and life.
John, you often refer to your meditation practice here in this church as the work, and you take it you're very disciplined, you treat it very seriously, actually. If we're having a cup of tea and it gets to 20 to 4, you get shuffly and nervous and say, oof, you tap your watch and say, oh, it's time to get to work, and we walk up the hill and to meditate at 4 o'clock. Meister Eckhart has a similar outlook on what he calls becoming emptiness. He says, our work is simply this, to become the emptiness that can receive.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's a lovely description of meditation. It's just that. Absolutely hits the nail on the head. Becoming the emptiness that can receive. Yes, that's it. As I've often described meditation, it's like this. This is letting go all the things, the attachments to things, because it's the attachment to things that holds us prisoner. The things we've gathered together, you see, to form this prison of separate existence. And what meditation helps us to let go. Meditation's nothing we do. Meditation is all about letting go, and then, there's that phrase, let go, let God. Because in one's surrender to this infinite nothing, you realize that's really the original motive of creation. It is the creator. It is the source of all goodness. And this is the source of all limitation. And the absence of good is what we call bad. Bad is really just absence of good. Dark is the absence of light. Because if we do this, we absent ourselves from the presence of God. We go into a little house, close the door, draw the curtains, sit there and say, oh, the world's so dark, it's full of problems, I don't know what to do with it. How do I make the world a better place? So you ring up your friend who's also sitting in a dark little world, and you talk about it. Well, how silly can we get? Why don't we just open the door? Step out into the sunlight. You know, I think in our last video, you asked me about thoughts. And afterwards I thought, well, there's another way you can look at thoughts. When we just are like this and are open to this infinite presence, that's undivided, isn't it? It's one God, one perfection, one completeness. You can't have two completenesses, can we? But you see, when we do that, which is the beginnings of separate existence, then instead of one, we see life as little bits, you and me, light and dark. And thought is really just chopped up little bits of oneness. As long as we go on believing in separate existence, we'll go on having thoughts. And when you come into oneness, what happens to thoughts? There aren't any, it just melts away. They all melt away into the original oneness that's all containing.
Could you say that this emptiness, so that we can receive, is a quality of thoughtlessness?
Well, thoughtlessness is really what it's one of the benefits that we get from just beginning to practice. And if we do have to, it's a long process. You don't just suddenly jump into it. Although, we do get glimpses. Just yesterday afternoon, after meditation, there were 3 of us here. And we walked up the hill behind the church. And up there you get a wonderful, well, you're high up above the town. And it's easy. You look down on the town. There's the town with all its human problems. Everybody thinking and, you know, buying and selling and getting tea ready and things. And up there you just look at it all with an overview. And there you are underneath the sky. And one of the most obvious things is that you're quiet, you're at peace, and you forget to think. So we're happy up there. Before, of course, we start talking, and then we get the waters muddied a bit. But that is the effect, isn't it, of rising up in consciousness, which is what happens. Because if we do this like a balloon, we rise up. The only reason balloons stay on the ground is because they're attached. Now when you do this, which is meditation, consciousness automatically rises up. So you get more of a bird's eye view of creation. And so instead of seeing millions of alternatives, you tend to see it all as a whole. So lo and behold, then you have less thoughts. And if you're fortunate, none at all. Now then we often think, well, what happened? I was asleep or something. We can hardly conceive of life without thoughts. But I assure you, life without thoughts is absolutely super. Once you get the taste of it, you begin to think that thoughts aren't really all they're puffed up to be. Life without thoughts is actually very nice. Is it thoughtlessness, or is it infinitely richer? Thoughtlessness implies some sort of mental poverty. Oh no, it's just the opposite of that. It's the infinite richness, the fullness.
Not only thoughts, but words. On a recent retreat, you were asked how do we encourage this presence, and you, quick as a flash, you said, "Stop talking."
Almost invariably, yes.
Our goal is to empty ourselves so that we may be filled with the fullness. Meister Eckhart says, when you are finally empty, God will find you.
Yes. Again, we're so funny, aren't we? We think God is somewhere over in somewhere. God will find us. Has God ever lost us? Have we just lost God? Where is God, for heaven's sake? Isn't he here? What are we sitting in? What's this presence? How can it not be here? And outside, it's everywhere. We're like fishes in the sea. You cannot not be in God. Except we either do this or do that, or in some way absent ourselves, absent our consciousness from it.
Meister Eckhart's prescription for us then is become simple enough to receive the one who is nothing, and empty enough to hunger for the nothing that is God.
Oh, yes, I like that, hunger. Yes, well, certainly when I was younger, I did hunger, because like every young man, desperate for love, desperate for freedom and meaning to life. Oh, hunger, yes, indeed. That's what drives one on, and through one worldly disappointment after another, you eventually, if you're lucky, come to realize that what you're looking for is actually not a thing, is not a thing of this world, that's here today and gone tomorrow, which is why worldly satisfactions all fail, but is actually in spirit, in this invisible presence. And the deeper you go into that, the deeper you realize that this is the origin of all the separate particles of this ultimate satisfaction that we try to make do with in this world. So we enjoy love until it goes sour. We enjoy our holiday until it comes to an end. We enjoy good health until we lose it. But this, once you find it, you don't ever want to let it go, and we don't have to, because it isn't even holding on to it, because it holds us infallibly. And all we've got to do is just surrender into it, melt into it, just, into thy hands, O Lord. And then we begin to find out what's home. Oh, and you love it. How can you not love it? You see, again, tears come into my silly old eyes because it's all that one ever longs for. It's all human fulfillment. All of it together. Like a butterfly on your hand, or the first violet of spring.